Hello, and welcome to the Public Buyers Community podcasts, where we discuss all things public procurement. In this episode, we'll be discussing the very topical and somewhat complex issue of AI and what support there is for public buyers so that they can procure AI-enabled solutions that are trustworthy, fair, and secure. To help us understand the regulatory and social context regarding AI and what this means for the public buyers community, we're delighted to be joined today by three guests who all have an in-depth knowledge of various aspects of the issues. And going around my screen, I'd like to introduce Colin Van Noort. Colin is a researcher into the use of AI within public services. He also does research into algorithms and cloud services. Welcome, Colin.
Thank you very much for having me.
We have Diletta Heiskes. She is a researcher. Her area of speciality is ethics of technology and the social impact of artificial intelligence, assessing decision-making processes in public service. You're very welcome joining us today, Diletta. Thank you very much indeed. Finally, Eleonora Bonnell. She is a digital polity expert specializing in governance and the implementation challenges related to digital government transformation. So, thank you very much, all of you, for joining us today. Very interesting topics to discuss. And what I'd like to do to start off with is to give a little bit of background to this. Obviously, we have the AI Act, which was adopted last year, which is trying to set a regulatory framework for AI in general. And I'd just like to think a little bit about the background context before we go into what it means specifically for the public buyers community, public procurement in general. So if you could, I'm going to start with ladies. Diletta, I'm going to start with you, and then Colin, I'd like to come to you for comment as well. Could you provide a little bit of background about the dangers that the AI Act is designed to mitigate, if you would? Diletta, give us your views on that.
Sure. Well, the AI Act is generally designed to mitigate risks related to health, safety, and fundamental rights. It establishes a risk-based approach to AI regulation, ensuring that all applications with the most significant societal impact are subject to closer controls and requirements. I like to see it as AI systems that are considered to be most at risk as those used in, for example, decision-making processes that significantly affect individuals or groups in society lives. And some examples include AI used in essential services such as healthcare, welfare, education, where automated decisions or AI-based decision-making could limit or grant access to services and fundamental rights, but also employment, for example, recruitment processes, where we know about examples of bias or algorithms that have led to discrimination. So by categorizing these applications as high risk, the AI Act ensures they undergo rigorous assessment and compliance checks before deployment and during use.
Okay, thank you very much. I wonder, Colin, if you could give me a little bit more light on this in terms of practical examples that Diletta touched on. The differentiation, for example, between high risk and low risk use of AI.
This was already a very nice introduction to the AI Act, and it's exactly a risk-based approach. So AI systems will be classified under 3-4 levels. It depends a bit on how you look at it, depending on indeed the risks to society and human rights. So the AI Act comes with a number of forbidden practices, if they were not already forbidden, but now they're extra forbidden. So you can think about social scoring systems, systems that are really designed to manipulate people. They are now also explicitly forbidden. It's a small category probably of all the AI systems. A bit one level down are these high risk systems indeed. So these are some of the areas that Diletta was also mentioning. So if you use AI in essential public services, for instance, this would then be categorized as a high-risk AI case with some additional requirements. Well, quite a lot of additional requirements. Then one level lower, there are some transparency requirements. So you need to be transparent about the use of AI when you, for instance, are using a chatbot. So people should know that this is actually a computer and not get confused. And the last level is basically anything that is not part of those categories. These are then regarded as minimal risk, and they do not really come with additional requirements from the AI Act.
If I can jump in also and complement, the AI Act gives some additional tools to address some of these risks. So we see how it is a regulation that tries to grant these fundamental rights protection, but at the same time, it has this ambitious challenge of trying to promote European innovation. And some of these tools to promote this is experimentation through AI regulatory sandboxes, which can be considered a tool to anticipate potential risks before a new solution is implemented. So these are essentially a testing arena for developers, but also relevant competent authorities to inform and potentially adapt legislation, extrapolating some best practices. And just to mention very briefly, complementary to this approach to experimentation for the public sector, there is the Interoperable Europe Act, which is another regulation through which interoperability regulatory sandboxes can be a tool for public sector to experiment and test any potential legal questions related to cross-border innovation.
Obviously, in this podcast, what we're interested in is the world of public procurement and how AI is going to affect that. I was wondering if we could think for a moment about where we are now in terms of where AI is. So I was wondering if anyone has any examples so far of where AI has actually been involved in a public procurement process.
Yeah, I wanted to introduce a little bit this in the sense that I think it's important to mention the fact that AI has already been integrated into various public sector services through procurement processes in the last years, because we know AI since a long time now presents enormous opportunities for the public sector. For instance, I was thinking about how it can help modernize long-standing bureaucratic structures that are often inefficient by enabling the analysis of data and systematization of documentation, for example, that has been accumulated over the years. But we also know that AI cannot function effectively on flawed foundations. So implementing such systems with or on dysfunctional or problematic infrastructures risks exacerbating existing issues. And this is why I think public procurement jumps in, because it's important to take it into consideration. And so ask ourselves as a first point, like I really like to see it as a zero questions, right? So do we need AI, and which AI do we need for this specific task? But some of these examples that I've been seeing around Italy, for example, include machine learning models that are used for data analysis in domains such as tax audits or fraud detection, or creating, something more sensitive and complex or problematic, such as risk profiles of citizens in order to access certain services like education or welfare. And, we have in Italy and in Europe some examples of problematic public procurement in this sense, where, for example, companies designed certain applications for specific domains outside the public sector and then sold these applications to the public sector, which ended up in flaws or error or negative impacts when used by public authorities. And something that we are seeing now a lot is the use of chatbots, for example, powered by generative AI-based solutions that are used by public administrations to assist citizens, for example, in navigating public services, or even internally in public administration and authorities in order to access information about tenders or administrative procedures.
Colin, you wanted to come in with an example there as well?
Yes, so in my experience, there's quite a intricate dance between public procurement and AI in various forms. So you have indeed the procurement of AI systems, so where a public buyer is, what they want to use AI and they buy it. But you also see a growing interest and trend in using AI within the procurement process, perhaps to buy AI as well, but also various other services. And a bit more hidden, of course, is that you buy regular services or products where maybe AI is integrated in some form or fashion. Sometimes it's a bit more hard to find out because it's a supplementary part of a broader package. And think about a translation service, right? So maybe they use AI at one part of the process, but you're not really buying an AI system. You're purchasing translation. So these are quite some different areas where you can see AI in procurement coming together with each of the with different challenges and of course opportunities.
And yes, we're all beginning to see things like especially chatbots creeping into our lives, which never seem to quite understand what I want, which is always a bit of a problem. We're going to move on a bit further because we've looked at the background now. So I'd like to take this a little bit further, a little bit deeper into the world of public procurement. As has already been mentioned, there are potential dangers in procuring systems that may include AI as a supplementary element of that, or maybe even in a way that isn't obvious to start off with. Are we satisfied that the AI Act and the protections it provides are robust enough? And I'm thinking obviously of areas where maybe bad actors from abroad, foreign powers, etc., may be able to get access to what can be, as we've already mentioned, very sensitive systems that contain information about citizens or other information. Just generally speaking, in terms of public procurement, do you feel that the protections that have been brought forward are robust enough to provide those levels of protection?
So the AI Act, in particular through Article 6 and the classification for high-risk AI systems, seeks to balance this idea of improving the trustworthiness of AI applications and setting some clear risk classifications for the use of AI systems, while at the same time trying to promote European innovation, which is no easy task. What has been said by different civil society organizations during the AI Act negotiations is that this focus of the ban for use of AI systems in certain sensitive areas was not comprehensive enough, and in particular that the application of the fundamental right impact assessments ought to be made compulsory for some public administrations. We know that this was a very sensitive topic for the negotiations between the Parliament and the relative co-legislators. But what we can say is that specifically in the field of the procurement for administrations, the public buyers community was very active to promptly provide some solutions to help the administrations comply with these new requirements. So while there may be some gaps at the moment, as there is an implementing act being developed for the regulation on artificial intelligence, and there are more guidelines to follow from the Commission, the public buyers community promptly provided a response for organizations to already begin with their compliance for procuring AI systems. In particular, these standard contractual clauses target, on one hand, the high-risk systems classified under the AI Act, but at the same time, they also provide a light version of these clauses for non-high-risk AI systems. And the utility of this, I would want to underline for anyone listening, is that the clauses seek to assist the public organizations wishing to procure the systems, also in cases that are not high risk. So where appropriate and justified, depending on the impact of the system, public organizations may decide to extend the application of the clauses to other algorithmic systems that may not be necessarily qualified as AI. So this may include more simple software rule-based systems that still require the same standards of accountability and transparency. So I think this is a very positive step with actions taken with the AI Act.
Colin, does this touch on your area of research in terms of the robustness of the Act, possible threats? Is this something you've looked into during your research?
Yes and no. So, the AI Act at the moment is it is now there, but most of the articles are not enforceable yet. So, maybe the skeptic researcher, we have to see how it will work in practice. So, with the experience that I had with the research, like you said in the introduction, purchasing and also using artificial intelligence public administrations, it is really difficult. It's really complex. So I would really like to see how it will start in practice. So with the people that I've spoken on with the public procurement, it's hard. Many of the challenges and also the requirements of the Act, this is a multidisciplinary field. This is not something you can do with only legal background. This is not something you can fix if you have a data scientist background. You really need to have a lot of different perspectives come together that might not even agree with one another in this process of buying. So we'll have to see. It's relatively easy to buy an AI system and you just need to press, buy here. But to really know what are the requirements that you need for yourself, having the right requirements in your organization to also check if the supplier delivers, because what the contract says is one thing and what you get can be something else. But you need to be able to also control and check this. So we have to see. And I have good hopes, but I also think a lot of the AI systems, because of the risk-based approach, most of it will fall not under these high-risk areas. We have to see if there is a good alignment with all the risk areas and the actual risk that people face. Luckily, there's, of course, other legislation too, like the GDPR. But still, there can be various cases that can fall beneath the cracks of the AI Act. And we have to see in practice how that will work.
Thank you for that, Colin. And you actually touched on something very important there, which is the next thing I wanted to move on to, the complexity of the issue and also the newness of the issue. I mean, AI has just seemed to rocket into our lives from practically nowhere, or at least our awareness of it over recent years. And obviously, there are going to be people involved in public procurement, public buying, that are being faced with something very, very new. And of course, this is one of the ideas behind the draft clauses for public buying contracts. But just in general, I wonder, what is your feeling about how well equipped in terms of knowledge people working in public procurement actually are to start making those complex decisions about the use of AI and the buying of AI? And I wonder if any of you have any experience of that in your research and the people you work with, or a general overview of what the readiness level is.
I think I could provide some input in terms of research. Also, in particular on the Commission side, the Joint Research Center published a report just towards the end of last year on what are the perceived factors that influence AI adoption by public managers in Europe. And what is interesting is that it underlines, beyond analyzing the specific areas of what pushes people to adopt AI in the public sector, is that current procurement frameworks can struggle to keep up with the rapid evolution of AI technologies. So we see there is a clear gap between the capacities and some skills gaps also of administrations compared to adopting new technologies that require technical skills, but not only that, also legal, ethical, and governance knowledge on how to implement AI solution, and is it correct to apply an AI solution to solve this issue. It is also quite difficult to understand for some organizations whether they have the right citizen engagement. So is this solution something that responds to actual needs of the citizens? and there is a clear strategic alignment required there. What could be of interest also for the people listening is that the Joint Research Center and the Commission have worked on an observatory that maps out uses of AI, but also other solutions in the public sector. And this has a very detailed case study analysis on some uses of AI in the public sector, also underlining procurement practices. So I very much welcome anyone listening to check out the Public Sector Tech Watch, which you will find on the Interoperable Europe portal. And it has over 1,200 cases of AI applications across Europe. So this could be a starting point.
That's very useful. Thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention. Moving on from that, is there a danger, do we think, or where do we find the balance, is probably the best way of putting it, between providing the necessary protections and a robust system, but also at the same time allowing space for innovation? Because there is a danger that if we move too far one way, we turn our backs on possible innovations that could make people's lives easier. So I was wondering how you feel. Maybe Diletta, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this.
Well, I do believe the balance is a good balance. As Colin was saying earlier, and I much agree on that, it really depends on what we consider as AI or not, right? Because the AI Act and also these clauses, I mean, they have specific definitions of what falls under this scope, right? So it is, when we consider, for example, high-risk applications, I'm quite sure that the way that we're going through is the right one, in the sense that there is a fundamental shift that we need to put in place in how we develop and deploy technology today. And we've seen a lot of bad examples of how technology can be built. I mean, most of it related to AI systems. And we know that innovation cannot come at the expense of societal well-being and rights and fundamental rights. And the way AI is built should reflect this in all possible ways. So the challenge for me is mostly cultural, in the sense that it's not just about adding safeguards, but about changing the mindset around AI development, design, and procurement. So this is a long-term process. The AI Act is, just a bit of it. But as we were saying, it also depends on what will be the enforcement and applications of it. So how we will behave according to specific definitions, and how on the other side we will take the values and the general ideas that this regulation is putting on the table and use it as a guidance. Because I'm lucky enough, I think, to be working with some public administrations in Italy, for example, that are already enforcing some of the general ideas the AI Act put down, even if their applications do not fall under the high-risk specific definition, but they're still, they're already entering in the mindset that this is what needs to be done in Europe in order to innovate. And I mean, I agree with this.
In many ways, this goes back to, Eleonora, what you were saying earlier on about the sandboxes and testing things out in terms of the regulations, etc. There is going to be a learning curve, I guess, in this process, looking at what falls under the regulation, how we can work within the regulation to keep innovating, which of course is what everybody wants, but to be done in a way that is acceptable in terms of society. I'd like to move on a little bit in terms of the Act itself and looking forward now. Obviously, the Act was adopted last year, but as has been mentioned already, various sections of it come into force gradually in a staggered fashion. In terms right now, if you were speaking to as you are in fact, members of the public bias community in regard to the Act, but in AI in general, in terms of their procurement processes, etc. What should they be doing now to prepare themselves, both as institutions and individuals maybe, as we move forward into this brave new world of AI, etc.? What advice would you give them? Colin, I see you nodding there. Maybe you'd like to jump in on this one.
Yes, I mean, the best advice was start yesterday because, like you said, it will come into force in different phases, but it is a very complex piece of legislation and there might be a lot to do coming up. So definitely in the Netherlands, the last half year, there has been a serious wake-up call among public administrations that, hey, wait a minute, this is coming. I think most government organizations, they still don't even know if they are already using AI systems, if they are procured, or if they do them themselves. And then also, of course, the question is then, okay, what additional requirements do I have to fulfill for the AI Act? So there is still some time, but time goes really fast. So now, basically, the first requirements will start kicking in. So the forbidden systems will really be forbidden, basically. And also the AI literacy requirements will start. It's basically now. So you already, if you're now considering, hey, what do I need to do for the AI Act? You might already be too late. Now I don't expect that there will be a lot of organizations using social credit systems, but still it's something to be mindful of. That, hey, maybe these manipulative systems or systems that lean towards these forbidden areas, you really need to be careful. That's already now. That's at the moment the case. So that I think is a big advice. So now the wake up call is coming. It start inventory of what systems you're using already. What are the ones that you're planning? Are you an administration that is likely to fall under the high risk areas, right? So I mean, if you're in policing or in border migration, big chance that all of the systems that you're using will fall under one of these categories. So then, you need to really start prepping. Do you have the right skill sets internally? What is there to do? So that time is now.
Yes, Diletta, you'd like to come in?
Yes, because I think it really connects with your previous question, Steve, on the level of awareness or equipment that administration currently have, right? So Colin was mentioning this important AI literacy requirement that already came in. And there is a high degree of fragmentation in AI awareness and expertise about and across public procurement professionals and public people working in the private sector in general. So I think this is really important because, I mean, across all levels, if you don't know what AI is and what can do, you can't be prepared, right? So I think it's really important to start by raising awareness within the organizations. So which are the uses that are already in place, which are the applications and what are their objectives? Because we see, for example, in big public entities that people do not know what are the applications that the place where they work are using. So this is fundamental also for accountability reasons to spread the responsibility across different and among different actors. And building internal expertise is important because public procurement can be tricky. We see it with AI in the sense that many times, at least in Italy, are the companies that go to the public administration and say, hey, you need this because, I mean, this is innovative and you should buy it. So it rarely happens that is the public sector raising their hands and saying, hey, we have a need and it's specific to our work and we mapped it and we know that we need an AI or some sort of technology that will help us in doing this. And then they, start the procuring phase. So I think this is important first to have awareness and literacy as the AI Act is also requiring, and build expertise in order to map the needs where AI could help.
Yes, Eleonora, you wish to come in here as well.
Yes, thank you. To complement Diletta's point, which I very much share, what we could underline for the administrations is to leverage the tools that are being developed and already available to help them, because this is no easy task to prepare. For example, we have under the OSD Interoperable Europe portal, there is the Interoperable Europe Academy. So there are open, free courses for all administrations and employees that would want to learn more about interoperability, about AI for public sector. There is also the AI Skills Academy, together with a series of other tools that can help administrations understand what are catalogs of solutions out there, what are open source solutions that they can implement. So let's not forget that there is an important GovTech ecosystem growing in Europe. There are European SMEs, startups that are ready to collaborate with administrations and help support them for their innovation needs. And this is something that is important to bear in mind for European competitiveness, but also sovereignty. And another, last but not least, point would be that these procurement clauses that we've been mentioning are another important step to help public buyers prepare for compliance. So they're already out and available. There will be a new version adapted to the latest adopted AI Act. Keep in mind how these contractual clauses could help you keep a foot ahead for AI Act compliance.
Yes, and thank you for pointing that out. It is very important that people go and look at these and understand how they will fit into their procurement processes. As we bring this to a close, we're coming to the last question. I would like to very briefly read you something that I came across when I was doing my research from the Act. And I quote, "AI should be human-centric technology. It should serve as a tool for people with the ultimate aim of increasing human well-being." And of course, what I want to touch on to this last question is this idea, again, of benefiting from all the good that AI can do. And that's undeniable, that there is a lot that it has to offer. But at the same time, reinforcing and protecting citizens' rights so that it does remain human-centered, as our society is. And how can we make sure that we safeguard those rights while making sure that we do leave space for AI solutions? Going to go, Colin, what are your thoughts on this to start off?
Yes, I think that quote also captures an important message, and maybe also the listeners here might now be, oh, this is dangerous and scary stuff. But I think it's also very important to underline, there's also opportunities, and don't get completely discouraged by the potential risks that are out there, because there are plenty of use cases, plenty of opportunities where the risks are there, but minimal or easily mitigated. So this should also not be a podcast of discouragement. Definitely, there's a lot to criticize about the AI Act and high-risk use cases, but there's a lot that can also be done. So that's definitely something to undermine, and that is also to improve that social well-being. I have seen amazing use cases that really help, that really speed up services, really help identify people that might need help. So it's not all about fraud inspections. There's definitely also a lot of opportunities to improve it. So that should definitely not be forgotten. So don't see it only as a discouragement. It's difficult, but especially with the public bias community, the guidelines that are already available, don't reinvent the wheel. Use the information that is out there and help each other out. Share best practices. If you have a good experience with procuring, share it. That everybody can learn from that.
The idea of sharing knowledge is very much about what the public bias community is, that we share experiences, ask each other questions, help each other find solutions. Eleonora, your final thoughts on this as we come towards a close, please.
It's hard to compliment. I think Colin has been quite comprehensive in his answer. About not reinventing the wheel, I think this is very much the heart of my point, to ensure that you can focus on interoperability, in that administrations know that there are several well-constructed use cases available that you can consult, for example, on the Public Sector Tech Watch, and that these already take a point of view of transparency, accountability, co-creation, and this should be really the direction which we move forward. And very much welcome this idea of not ending on a discouragement note, but to make sure that administrations make the most of the flourishing GovTech European ecosystem to ensure that we develop innovation that is fundamentally respecting citizens' rights, but also adapting to the needs of citizens and moving forward towards, less burden, less red tape in administrations, and towards better services.
And Diletta, your final thoughts.
Thank you. I think you all mentioned very important points. I also like a lot the idea of sharing best practices. I'm seeing this across, for example, urban contexts, so public but local administrations across Europe that have focus group and specific groups where they meet and share what they can do at the local level in order to innovate with technology and AI, but respecting fundamental rights, ethics, and a good governance. And I think this is quite important also because what I normally highlight in my work is that AI should be designed and deployed with sensitivity to local contexts and specific needs. So this is also a big point, I think, that helps us not to be discouraged, because it's all a matter of why we want to do something and how we want to do it. We can do a lot of things. I would say everything, but it's not everything. It's almost everything. But it's all a matter of mitigating the risks. And this can be done most of the times also very easily. And I want to conclude by saying that something that we already mentioned, I think sandboxes and all the instruments that Europe gives us in order to test in real world conditions can really help in this.
We have to bring this to a close now, although, of course, the issue is much broader and we could probably spend all day and much, much more talking about it. I would like to thank you all very, very much indeed for joining us today and for giving us your very, very valuable insights. For listeners, please do check back. We'll be recording a whole series of podcasts, so please do check back and see what other subjects we'll be covering. We hope they will be of interest to you. Please do check out the Public Buyers community. Hopefully, if you're not already a member, you'll find there a community that's right for you and which you can benefit from. So, without further ado, thank you very much indeed for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next podcast.